Hello everyone. Today we'll be doing a presentation on emergency scenario of bushfire impacts on the GunaiKurnai community in Gippsland, Victoria. Black Summer bushfire, the year 2019-20, was one of the catastrophic fire seasons recorded in Australia, where 56% of East Gippsland was burned. 1 in 8 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Australia were directly impacted by the bushfires. GunaiKurnai people are the traditional owners of Gippsland, with approximately 3,000 GunaiKurnai people and their territory, including the coastal and inland areas to the southern slopes of the Victoria Alps. Over the past century, the GunaiKurnai country has suffered from a series of major bushfires causing huge damage to the land, along with the constant accumulated impacts on inhabitants' life. Nevertheless, bushfires in 2019-20 is still the most severe on record in terms of its frequency, location, extent, and impact on Aboriginal cultural sites of GunaiKurnai country. Though the GunaiKurnai people are spread out in Gippsland, we'll be focusing on the further east areas of Malakuta and Brothen. Since these areas are remote, they were completely cut off during the fires. In this section, we are going to introduce the preconditions leading to the catastrophic bushfire. Forest Fire Danger Index. The Forest Fire Danger Index, also known as FFDI, is based on a combination of different weather conditions known to influence the risk of dangerous bushfire conditions in Australia, including temperature, rainfall, humidity, and wind speed. In addition to the weather, bushfire events in Australia are also influenced by factors such as vegetation conditions, terrain, and ignition sources. The average annual accumulated FFDI above 50 is classed as severe. According to the data issued by Australia Bureau of Meteorology, the average annual accumulated FFDI of Gippsland in 2019 was above code red level. This was a catastrophe in the making. High temperature. Confirmed by Bureau of Meteorology, 2019 was Australia's warmest year on record. The annual mean temperature of 2019 anomalies above average Australia. Under the circumstances, heat continued to affect Australia until the end of the year, bringing repeated periods of severe fire weather to the southeastern states. Severe drought. 2019 was the driest year on record for Australia at 277.6 mm of annual mean. The extraordinarily low rainfall in 2019 is only comparable to the driest periods in Australia's recorded history. Low rainfall also led to very low soil moisture across large areas of Australia during the year. The drought has affected southeastern Australia, increasing the likelihood of bushfire. Wind. The majority of the Victorian coast has a maritime temperature climate, with warm, dry summers, and wind speed varies along the coast and has a dominant west to the southwest direction. This includes in the region of Gippsland. When bushfires break out in summer, they are driven inland and up the coast by the strong winds and eventually causing catastrophic results. Vegetations. Vegetation is the combustible biomass of the catastrophic bushfires. A research demonstrated that changes in vegetation types since colonial era in Gippsland may have contributed to more severe bushfires. The density of shrub and heath covering the forests and woodlands have increased throughout the years. The transition from grassy woodlands to heathy ones provides highly variable biomass for combustion. This may indicate the replacement of frequent, low-intensity, ubiquitous, and patchy culture burning with more localized, infrequent, high-intensity fire regimes. The absence of culture burning may be one of the important factors transiting the vegetation types and fueling the bushfire. The practice of culture burning among Indigenous Australians is to clear land by placing it on a torch, lightly burning bushes of vegetation and turning the land into a managed estate. Before 1788 of British colonization, flammable vegetation were managed by indigenous groups mainly through the frequent ignition of small-scale fires. This keeps the biomass of herbaceous and woody plants in a region in a balance. Understory vegetation was limited, and patchy open woodlands and savanna-like landscapes were maintained. Indigenous fire system created fine landscape heterogeneity along with a tangible cultural connection between humans and their lands. It is undeniable that, in Gippsland, the claims for culture burning of indigenous groups are excluded in modern days.
The theoretical and frameworks and methodologies that we're going to be talking about and we've been considering are the connecting with country and co-design frameworks, along with deep listening and yarning methodologies. So when we talk about the specific approach, it's very important to consider the fact that the GunaiKurnai people and the community that we are talking about is connected to country at a very deeper level. And when we even look back at the poor timber harvesting practices, along with the fact that these communities were not allowed to practice their cultural and coal burnings, we kind of see how this affected and had a very bad impact on the bushfires and their impact on Australia. And when we're talking about the framework specifically, the connecting with country and co-design, it's very important for us to consider this example of Banana Women, which shows a community of women from the Gunai people who specifically made like an all women firefighting space where they were deeply uh, committed to giving back to their community. And it's a very good example of even how the culture and traditions of the Gunai people and the indigenous people in Australia overall, how they have this need of giving back to their country and their space. And we're talking about the deep listening and yarning, and why we specifically consider these choices when we're talking about the methodologies. It's very important to consider these because at this point, it's very important for an understanding to be there when we're talking about these communities. Because of course, like I said, they have been on this space, on the spaces of Gippsland for so long that they know how to take care of the community and the country. So it's, of course, there are protocols that will need to be followed according to their culture and traditions, but it is very important. Moving forward, when we look at the site analysis, the two specific regions that we wanted to focus on was Bhutan and Malakura, and why we chose these was because both of these have a 3.5% population of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander population, and which might not seem like a lot, but when you consider and compare the other parts of Gippsland, it's a lot of people to have there. So that's a very good place for us to start our research. And then when we talk about Gippsland, it's very important to know that the Gunai people specifically are the original take caretakers of this land. And one of the most interesting things when we look at these kind of site images from Google Earth is that both these spaces are so heavily surrounded by forests and vegetation, which is why it would be very chaotic and destructive if when these places are under bushfire effect and they would be completely inaccessible. When we move on towards the statistics, here are some statistics proving our point of the fact that of the percentages. So moving on, when we to a close-up, you can kind of see for Malakura specifically, it has one main road that connects it to the other part of Victoria, which is very concerning because when we look at like the street view of that road that I have also shared here, you can kind of see how it's so dense with vegetation and with a lot of bush forest, which is not a good thing because, of course, if there are bushfires that are taking places, this road along with the people that are living in Malakura would be inaccessible. So, and then we talk about the fact that both of the places that we were talking, Malakura and Bruton, both have a population of a little bit of an over of 1,000 people. So again, that makes it a little bit more difficult for help to be given or mm, uh, the resources to be access to these people, even on, I would say, on a regular time frame rather than when we're comparing it to there being an actual disaster there. So, and the population density being 1.49 people per square kilometer in Malakuda. When we talk about the inhabitant analysis, specifically the GunaiKurnai people, it's very important for us to consider the fact about their history, about their cultures, about their resources, about the fact that they are heavily connected to country and how they were dependent on it for their livelihood for a very long time, where kangaroo was their main source of meat, and they were also consuming possum and wombats and koalas and so many other species that are living in these vegetations in these forests, and also the vegetation that's available there. And when we talk about specifically, there are five clans of the Gunai people, and specifically the ones that we are talking about here are the Brabalong and the Bedwali, which are situated in the Bruton and the Malakuda area. When we move forward, we can kind of see like this map. So this specific map is kind of a breakdown of the different communities that are there, of the different clans that are divided along, as I mentioned before. And when we talk about the people of the Gunai tribal conditions as a whole, customs and traditions, we can kind of see that how they do value community as a whole very much. Also, the fact that though there is a equality among the people, there is an understanding culture of the fact that the elders need to be respected because, of course, they would have a lot of guidance to give. And when it's very important to them, to these communities, to care for their young, to care for their families, and how the women, when they would be moving, they would be carrying the goods and that needed to be transported. The children would mostly be held in skin rugs on their backs, and the elderly and the sick would walk with the women as well. When we're talking about the major move, we can kind of see that after colonialism, due to missions and reserves, the major ones being the lake tires and another one. You can kind of see how during that area, around 1971, 1908, these people had to move, and because of that, uh, they are kind of, we can see how they're divided all over this area of Gippsland. And today, the elders of the Gunai community are making efforts for the traditions to be kept alive because, of course, the traditions and history and the culture is something that they want to keep on moving forward. Finally, when we're talking about when we've already talked about the inhabitants and the community, we need to talk about the emergency scenario. So when we're talking about bushfires, we specifically are targeting about the 2019 to 2020 Victorian wildfires, which had a very devastating impact. Unfortunately, though, the area of Gippsland has a very back end history of a lot of other fires that have taken place. So they had the Black Friday fires in 1939, which burned 35% of the Gunai community land, which when we also moving forward, there was another fire in 1965 burning 17% of the land. Then we look at the Great Divide fires of 2007, which made up 27% of the land. And when we move forward to the Gippsland fires of 2019-2020, we see how the percentage is 20%. So what we can kind of observe with these statistics is the fact that at the end of the day, fires happening in the Gippsland area specifically, or in the Victoria area specifically, aren't something that is a very new thing. This is something that has been happening, which is why it's very important for there to be communication with the community, with the GunaiKurnai community, and with the people, and with to communicate with them, with these communities, because of course they care for their country. They have years and decades, and I would say centuries of experience with these fires and with the climate, with the country, and of course, when they have so much valued information, it would be wise to seek to them for more guidance when it comes to other forms of taking care of country specifically.
Hello everyone, my name is Yuxuan Wang and you can call me Spike. It's my turn to introduce and present the research of the presidents. Before I introduce some specific presidents, I think I need to introduce some general approach and framework about bushfire. The land management including vegetation management measures such as burning management, facility construction, and firefighting equipment. Burning management means prevent the spread of fire by controlling grass burning and clearing the growing winds in order to reduce the scale of the bushfire. Facility constructions means that building fire passages, fire breaks, and fire wards and other professional facilities to cut off the spread of bushfire effectively. The last one is the firefighting equipment. Firefighting equipment, including some tools and machines that we all know, like water guns, fire extinguishers, and fire truck, which can quickly distinguish the fires when fire occurred. This page, I will present some specific precedents about bushfire in Australia. One of the papers inspired me a lot, which named Learning to Coexist with Wildfire. Learning to Coexist with Wildfire aims to explore how humans can coexist with bushfire and reduce their negative impact on humans and their communities and ecosystem as well by changing their native residents' attitude and behaviors. There are three elements the paper mainly discuss. The first one is the bushfire and the community planning. The paper introduced the importance of considering bushfire risks in different communities planning. The paper emphasized the identification of potential bushfire hazard areas and taking appropriate planning measures. The next one is the ecosystem. The paper discussed the relationship between the ecosystem and bushfire in order to reduce the impact of the ecosystems on bushfire. The last one is the social, psychological, and behavioral concept. This article discussed the impact of individual and community level psychological and behavioral concepts on bushfire response. The writer suggests to change native residents' attitude and behaviors towards bushfire, including raising awareness of bushfire risks and enhance their educational skills in order to deal with the bushfire. This page I will present and discuss the cultural burning and prescribable burning. The difference between the cultural burning and the prescribed or control burning is the intention and who is setting the fire. Both required permission from the relevant or fire agency. The long-standing cultural burning to match vegetation is really vital to the material culture of many indigenous communities. Cultural burning is hardly focused on reducing the fire hazard, which is really different from the western part of the bushfire. Is really special and only happening in Australia in Gippsland. For the next step, I will talk about the critical source of cultural burning. The critical source of cultural burning I need to present is the complex or conflict about the government and the native Australia activities. Understand how native Australia harvesting activities relate to ecological conditions at different scale may help forest managers promote valuable cultural resources and border objectives. Native America, I mean Gippsland, today as in the past, adapt the response to area of the landscape affected by fire and to acquire the resources of the land. Because of the time restrict, I just show you some image how I made about my critical source and some systems about in order to deal with the bushfire in the Gippsland. As a summary, I think as a team we do a lot of research, we do the site analyze, we do the habitat analyze. So how to deal with the cultural burn? I think there are 3 strategies and methodology to deal with the cultural burn. The first one is control and regulate indigenous burning activities. Establish clear burning regulation and management, ensure the burning activities are under the law and safety, and strictly controlling the time, location, and method of burning in order to reduce the damage of the environment and the ecosystem. The second methodology is to promote sustainable indigenous burning practice, encourage indigenous communities to adopt more environmentally friendly and sustainable burning techniques, such as controlling the size of the bushfire, choosing suitable weather conditions and stuff to reduce the negative impact of bushfire. The last one is about support indigenous communities involved in management. You need to show the respect to their original culture in Gippsland and encourage indigenous communities to participate in local environmental management and involve them to some bushfire agencies, promote them to share the same resources and stuff. Yeah, thank you. It's my turn. Over.